Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a very long awaited video. I'm going to be sharing my experience as an expat living in South Korea. So I lived there between the years of 2022 and 2023. So we're about 2 years out from when I was supposed to make this video, but nonetheless, here it goes. So I'm gonna break this video down in a few parts, starting with where I got the idea from, to the process to get there, my initial reactions and culture shock, my overall experience, and then in part 2, I will be sharing some diary journal entries from my time when I was actually there. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Okay, so let's start with the idea. Where on earth did I get the idea to move to South Korea? And I currently reside in the United States. So that was about a 14.5-hour flight. So I had finished up graduate school remotely because the pandemic shut down everything. And after I graduated, there was a space where I was trying to figure out what to do next, but I also had a sense of I want to do something different before I jump into the workplace. So I actually was on YouTube watching a video of a girl who was currently teaching English in Korea, and in my mind I was like, that's really cool, but I would never do that. And then I kept scrolling. And so a few months later, things just kind of happened to where I was realizing I'm not really finding a good job yet. Mind you, this was a few months into the pandemic. So, of course, the employment situation in the country was a mess. So it wasn't on me, but it still felt like, how do I not have a good job by now? Like, I've been done with school for the past couple of months. So when certain things were short-lived or didn't work out, the idea of teaching English in Korea kept coming back to my head. And my family was extremely excited and supportive of the idea, and I think that was the biggest indicator as to if I would even pursue this thing or not. So I did extensive, and you can comment down below if you want more details, but I did extensive research on everything. Like, is Korea the best country to teach English for your first time? Is it safe? Is it safe for a Black woman? What would the day-to-day be like? The cost of living, safe recruiters. Should I even use a recruiter? Should I go through a company? Should I apply directly? So after months of research and preparation, including getting my Teaching English as a Foreign Language, TEFL certificate, I was like, okay. I had actually had another opportunity, and then I also was pursuing the career path. And I told myself, after this interview with the Korean government over Zoom, if I get in, I'm going. If I don't get into the program to teach English, I will pursue the other opportunity. Because if I do get in once again, this is once in a lifetime. An opportunity like the one that I would have stateside can come anytime. So I was extremely nervous. I had my notes pasted on the wall above the camera. But I was so nervous, but when it came down to it, I did it, and apparently I did it well, because I think it took a day or two for me to get the email that I was accepted into the EPIK program. That is the program, EPIK, English Program in Korea. that is a program that I went to Korea via. So that was about October of 2021. And so the month leading up to February, which is when I flew out, it was a lot of excitement. I don't, it's interesting. Like, I wasn't nervous, I was more so excited, even though this would be the furthest I have ever traveled, and I was traveling obviously by myself. However, I did go with a group because there was a group chat created of other people in the EPIK program who lived in your certain area. So there was a group chat created. So I did travel with a couple of people from my area or the surrounding states. But ultimately, I was on my own. So I remember my mom, dad, and sister dropped me off at the airport. I think it was February 11th. I think I can remember the date. 2022. We said our goodbyes. I had my mask, my face shield, because I was like, I don't want to catch anything, because if you're sick or your COVID test comes positive during orientation, they could kick you out the program. So I was not playing. So on that 14 and a half hour flight, I actually did not sleep. I think it was the nerves, the excitement. And I'm also the kind of person that can't really fall asleep in the car. I need to be in a bed. So I think that also played a role. But I think I watched probably like 3 movies. I think I read a little bit, and I kind of just, rested my eyes, but I didn't get to actually sleep. And if I did, it was for minutes at a time. The food was very good. I'll see if I can insert images throughout this video, my story time, but the food is very good on the plane. I had bibimbap, and then I had this beef dish, and then they also served snacks as well. I remember I got fruits, and I forgot what the other snack was, or maybe it was one snack, but I also brought my own snacks. So upon landing, again, since I'm not by myself, it almost felt like I was at an orientation for college. So it's a whole bunch of freshmen to the country, getting our bags, walking through the process, looking for the person that's holding up, our certain group. And then we head to a hotel where we have to quarantine for 10 days, because this was still at the time of the pandemic where quarantining in certain countries was required. So we actually quarantined at a hotel, which was an experience in itself, because there was nothing to do except watch TV and talk to everyone in the chat about the different food that's being delivered to us. But that was also a good time to kind of ground myself before I take off. So after quarantine, we were then moved to the orientation sites, and I think orientation was about 5 days. It was very informative. I met some friends as well. And then after orientation, that's when we were sent to our designated schools. So I actually lived in the countryside, so I did not get to live in Seoul, the glamorous metro life. No. I literally had like cows and farming like in my backyard. But looking back, I appreciate that because it was a small town feel. It was manageable. And I feel like that is how I learned Korean the best, is by immersing myself in a space to where there is literally no English being spoken. Oh yeah, sidebar, I did not learn Korean before I got to Korea. I picked it up from my students, from my surroundings, and then I took about a 4-week class. But I learned enough to get by and to communicate very, very basic phrases and needs. So I taught at 2 different schools, 2 different elementary schools, grades 1 through 6 at both. I would teach more of the lesson in the morning, and the afternoon would be called after school. That's where we did more so games, activities, and crafts. I have a lot of interesting stories, which I will share in part 2, of just like, miscommunication that ended up being funny, cultural differences. just funny things that the students would say or how they would try to communicate with me. So definitely look out for part 2 of this series, I guess. So I would say my initial thoughts was this country is very efficient. Their network, listen, I have never experienced such great Wi-Fi. And once again, I was in the countryside. So that Wi-Fi was just also efficient in their public transportation. I could jump on the bus and get to the neighboring major city in minutes, and it was so efficient, so easy to get your ticket. My favorite thing to do was travel the country via the train. The train system, so clean, so pristine, so quick, so easy to navigate even as a foreigner. So that's what one of my first impressions were. I remember after a month of getting there, I was able to find my way from the countryside to Seoul and get my hair braided. Like, so another initial impression was that the public school system is more lax than I was used to in the United States. Mainly because students go to hagwons, or those who can afford it, go to private academies or hagwons after school, to where they get that intensive education, additional education, whether it be in English and then other subjects. So public school is kind of like a foundation, but if you really want to be the best of the best, you're going to enroll your kid in a hagwon. That was another cultural shock, because there were certain things that I, was raising my eyebrow to, about like, wow, this is very chill. This is very different from what I'm used to. But overall, there were pros and cons. I live at the intersection of racism, sexism, ageism, and many other isms that, definitely had an impact on my experience, in that it made it challenging in a lot of ways. However, I learned so much about myself from this experience, just that, like, we can do anything. We can do all things through Christ. Like, I can be picked up, plopped somewhere where I do not know the language, and I can navigate and work and pay bills and live life and make friends just like that. Like, of course there were missteps and some tears, some fears, some awkward situations, but overall, like, I did that, and I'm so proud of that, and I'm so happy that I did this at the time that I did. I wasn't partnered, no kids, like, wasn't really tied to anything. I had finished my second degree. I'm like, I'm young, this is the time. This is the time to go. So if you have any additional or specific questions, you can ask them below. But if I would recommend someone to teach English abroad, specifically in South Korea, that highly depends on the kind of person you are, how much grit and perseverance you have, how much research you do, your willingness to stick things out when things don't go your way, and if you have genuine care for students. So I didn't study teaching, but I am in a field that's very people oriented, and I worked with kids for probably about 5 years prior to going. So connecting with students, teaching them, that was something that I genuinely cared about. It wasn't just, I want to go to Korea to just, explore and be a tourist for a year. Like, I actually had interest in the work that I was doing, and I found my own ways to make it unique, creative, and fun. I still miss those kids. Like, they literally hold a really, really special place in my heart. they would call me Tama teacher. So cute. But yeah, so look out for part 2 of this video where I'll be sharing some specific interesting stories from my diary at that time. Please subscribe to my channel. I hope that this video was as, it wasn't super detailed, but I hope that it at least gave a pretty general overview of my time. Oh, I will share kind of like my daily routine before I go. So I would get up at around 7 a.m. I would go and get the bus around about 7:45, 7:50. I would get to school around 8:20, and the first class I believe started around 8:30. And so I would teach, for example, 6th grade, 5th, 4th, 3rd, and I had a co-teacher at one of my schools who was Korean, and then at my other school it was just me. I taught by myself. And then there would be lunch, and then after lunch is when I would teach after school. So I would have the younger kids, grades 1 and 2, and we would do games, videos, crafts, activities, and things of that nature. And then I would get the bus home, come home, and either hang out with friends in my town or grab coffee and just chill by myself, call friends. The time difference was either 12 or 13 hours, depending on when the United States did their daylight savings. So maybe in the late evening, I would catch up with people in the States, and it would be their morning. So yeah, my day, it would look like a pretty typical work day. But the weekends is when I would do my shopping and my exploring and my traveling. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in part 2.